Let me paint you a picture. Australia, once known as one of the safest and freest countries in the world. A land of spirit and ceremony. A land of opportunity where the hopeful came for a new start so their children could be free and prosperous. Where the battler had a chance and poor men made good. A land where you were free to explore your surroundings. A land with room to spread one's wings. A land of brotherhood, celebration, and connection. A land where you came to visit and didn't want to leave. A land of privacy rights, medical rights, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom to protest, freedom to worship, thanks to their sacrifice. But something happened.
Today is the first full day of the New World Order.
We've got to accept that this is the New World Order.
The New World Order.
And the Australia we once knew is no more.
Lockdown 6 was announced on August 5.
It is no longer the land of the young and free. It is now a land of division, blackmail, coercion, discrimination, and medical apartheid.
Get off of me!
A land where movement, speech, religion, and opinion are no longer free. Protesting is illegal. Police must enforce corrupt policies to keep their jobs.
As I won't be a police officer after the end of this interview.
Police shoot protesters in the back while they are running away.
This is Australia!
Doctors and nurses cannot speak. They will lose their license.
I can't really talk about that.
People have lost their jobs because they don't want the injection. Children are missing school and attempting suicide at a high rate. We need to show our papers to go shopping.
If you want freedom, get the jab.
We can't travel across state borders unless we apply for permission to. Members of Parliament are censored and defamed.
100% of those studies.
It's a conspiracy theory.
Pregnant women are arrested for a social media post.
Search warrant.
Search warrant for what?
Activists who fight for democracy are imprisoned.
At the moment you're under arrest for incitement.
Our human rights are gone. Our human rights are gone.
It's time that we take off the COVID blinkers and look at what's happened to our once great and free country.
Australia can no longer fight for itself. We have been silenced, assaulted, blackmailed, and psychologically damaged. We tried to fight this battle alone. The government has instilled so much fear that we have lost our vigour to fight. We are a broken nation, and although we will never give up, we need your help to continue our fight. We need help from our international friends. We are seeking your support to apply political and economic pressure on our leaders to change the destructive path that we are on. That is why we are organising a worldwide protest, with Australia excluded, in support of our plight for freedom. This is an official SOS from my beautiful country. We plead with you to hear our cries for help.
Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Chris Yule, aka the Esoteric Noetic, aka the Chocolate Nubian Soul Brother from Ghana, West Africa, cruising through the streets of Melbourne, Australia, mate. You know, true blue. You know, I always do the right thing. I'm on team meh. I'm a transvaxxite. That means I've taken the juice, even though I haven't, but I identify that I have. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mum, drop us some comments, let us know what it is. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, what a powerful video by Monica Smit. Now, here is a warrior that is planting herself like a tree beside the river of truth and saying nay to the tyranny that is befalling this beautiful country. It seems that tyranny is only a generation away. It feels like it was only just yesterday that Australia was this lucky country. I mean, don't get me wrong, we had our problems. Every governmental system has many problems because force, coercion is never cool. But this was one of the freest countries, right? And over the last 20 months, we've seen this country turn into a totalitarian system where the government has circumvented our human rights in the interest of health and safety, something that has always been done in order to bring about evil, tyranny. We're still having this discussion in regards to freedom. The same revolutionary beliefs that our forebears fought, the Anzacs, or whether you're in the United States, whether your ancestors fought in the Second World War, or they stood for something that mattered. We're still having this discussion as to whether or not the rights of the individual come from the generosity of the state or come from God, come from unalienable rights, our natural law, the justice. Ladies and gentlemen, Monica Smit is a woman that has gone through a lot of difficulty. She's obviously incarcerated for a number of weeks, and she is someone that is unbelievably courageous by any measure. But I heard her say something recently in an interview that this bill scares her, that she's worried about what this means for Australia. And I would imagine herself, I am. The chocolate Nubian ain't afraid of nothing. Yo, brother, I ain't afraid of nothing, man. You can't break me. But I'll tell you what, this bill is very concerning. It's going to make people like Monica, people like yours truly, people of color, people of all races, anyone for that matter, don't think you get away from this just because you're doing the right thing. The right thing can change. Just like that when you're dealing with tyrants. The right thing might be speaking out about the truth one day, and now it makes you a number one enemy of the state if you speak about the truth because, look, mate, it's public health and safety measure. So this bill is essentially going to allow the premier to go after people. It's going to make police officers indemnified from false imprisonment. And it's essentially going to allow the government to do anything that it wants. Of course, they'll use language like it's got to be reasonable, but as we've learned, reasonable just means we will justify it because it's for the greater good. So everyone should be against this thing, regardless of whether or not you are on the left or on the right. I mean, if you're a leftist, if you're one of these lefties that believes in animal rights, so you believe in racial equality of the sexes and so forth, don't like the idea of your race being targeted or people being targeted on their sex, then you should be against this shit. Because this is what we're going to be seeing in this bill. If you're someone that is on the right and you believe in individual rights, on people not having their right to move from place to place, their right to speak openly, provided they're not inciting actual violence or committing fraud, then you should be against this bill. Everyone should be against this bill. If we could have an open conversation in regards to what this bill was about, no sane person would be advocating for it. The only people that I'm finding are people that have not read the bill, have no idea what this bill is about. That's why we need to educate people. People say, oh, I'm sick. Look, mate, I'm sick of all this talking. I don't want to hear about you talking. Or why don't you go out and do something? Because that's how we bring about change. It's called freedom of speech. By having this marketplace of ideas and spreading information, it brings about change. It brings about action. Action comes from rightful thought. Right thoughts lead to right action. But unless, of course, people are aware of what is going on, they can't take the steps in order to make the change. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to announce that I'm going to be interviewing Monica Smit on my podcast. next week. I'm very excited about that. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to talk about what's going on in this beautiful country of ours and the future of Australia, specifically this bill, what it's going to mean for us. And if you guys have any questions you want me to throw at her, drop them in the comments below. We're going to get to the bottom of what is going on. And what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Well, one thing for certain, what is going on doesn't seem like it's in the best interests of you. I know a lot of you people may think that right now this stuff doesn't concern you, right? But that's been the case throughout this entire pandemic. Oh, look, mate, it's only anti-vaxxers that are a threat. I don't care about them. Oh, I'm a nurse. I'm fine. They're not coming after me. I'm a construction worker. I'm fine. But eventually, all of these groups were targeted. They were made to do things, make medical decisions that were, quite frankly, no one else's business but their own. But because of the government coercion, we've seen these people being targeted, being coerced, had their livelihoods destroyed. Make no mistake about it, this could be you. Now, granted, with this issue, you may be in favor of the narrative, but if this bill comes into effect, what next? What if they start telling you, we only want you to have one child because it seems like a public health and safety measure? Too many people means too much likelihood of spreading this dreaded Rona. What if Premier Andrews decides to suspend elections? A real possibility, because he's doing it for your own safety. Because we can't have any elections that's going to bring about too much transmission, which is obviously going to shut down the efforts of many of these activists like Monica and everyone that's been campaigning against the tyranny that we're seeing. This is the kind of stuff you are opening the door to if you don't stand up against this tyranny. Ladies and gentlemen, freaks and geeks, what is going on in Australia right now is we are having people targeted. We are having the police officers target people like Monica, will be targeting people like myself. And this bill is going to make it ever more difficult to continue doing this kind of work. So I'm actually on the verge of deciding if I'm going to be staying in this beautiful city. If this bill passes, it's quite possible the next time that you see me broadcasting, it will not be in the city of Melbourne. At the moment, we are having people's bank accounts suspended because they have not paid boom shakalaka fines. Can you imagine the situation where the government decides to tell you that you can't enter a public space because you're not clean? And then you decide to break that law? Now, I'm not inciting violence, but this is the interesting thing, right? Evil people make good things illegal. And eventually, unless, of course, you are a good person, you end up going along with this stuff, not resisting it. So all the good people at the moment, they're actually standing up for their rights, speaking the truth, exercising their freedoms, are being turned into criminals. And then they're being fined. And then when they don't pay these fines, they're having their bank accounts suspended. Now, if this is not the future that you want to be living in, you should seriously consider standing up against this bill. Ladies and gentlemen, freaks and geeks, we are only a generation away from a complete tyrannical system. And whereas I understand a lot of people don't see it like this, I had someone just a while ago telling me that, look, the government is doing this for our safety. You need to realize that safety is all good and well, but when it violates the rights of the individual, it becomes immoral. I mean, it is the denial of all objective morals when you start violating people's rights for the greater good. And that's what the public health and safety measure tends to do. I mean, the idea that the government is locking people up in this in this country, in their states, and saying unless, of course, you do X and Y, regardless of what that thing may be, whether or not you think it's a good idea, because we all have different ideas on what is good and what is bad, right? But what we can all agree on is what we don't want done to ourselves. We don't want to be forced to do certain things if we're not harming anyone directly in the process. But what the government is doing is telling you that you can't leave your home, you can't do X and Y, unless, of course, you comply. And then some people have the audacity to say that no one's forcing you here, that you have a choice. When real choice requires the absence of violence, the absence of threats, actual threats of your human rights. The government is essentially trying to restrict you in doing something you have the right to do. And then people are saying that you don't have to do what they're telling you to do. Of course, if you take that option, you'll be fined. That's not choice, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you call coercion. That's what you call a threat. And unless, of course, we start calling this stuff out for what it is, tyranny, not public health and safety and well-being, blatant tyranny. This is how it always worked. Common law, the Nuremberg Code. It's not the subject requires to have voluntary consent. It's not, unless, of course, there's a public health and safety measure, it's fundamentally voluntary consent is required. But of course, we're now playing this obfuscated game where we're willing to circumvent individual rights, circumvent people's voluntary choice, informed consent under the idea of public health and safety. Doesn't work like that, never has worked like that, and it never will work like that. Ladies and gentlemen, freaks and geeks, plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and fall in love with the word no. No to the tyranny. How far do you want to take this thing? Because granted, you may be all right with what is going on now, but will you be all right if in 6 months' time you're required to do this thing, get juiced up in order to continue living your life? Will you be happy if in the future your children need to undergo some kind of experimental treatment in order to leave the country, in order to choose what they want to do for a living, in order to have children? You have to start thinking beyond your vision, your narrow vision. See where this thing is headed. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, freaks and geeks, brothers and sisters around the world, peace out, keep it real, don't drive and text. Drop us some comments below. Let us know if you have any questions from Monica, and check out the Patreon. Appreciate everyone that's been donating. I appreciate you. You guys are absolutely amazing. And if you're just watching this, I love you too. If you're sharing this, telling your mom, thank you. Either way, thank you for spreading this information. And remember that there are 3 things that cannot be hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the wisdomatic truth bombs of your chocolate Nubian soul, brother Chris Jewell.
What is liberty?
What the? Who says you can't build muscle on a vegan diet?
What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
There are no political solutions, only technological ones.
The economics of the system don't allow multiple competing systems to survive.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.